NATO chief in Washington, Zelensky to visit Paris and Brussels after London trip. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg is in Washington for meetings with top national security officials in the Biden administration to discuss defense assistance for Ukraine. He is set to speak to reporters on Wednesday afternoon. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky embarked on a multi-country Europe tour on Wednesday with a surprise visit to Britain, where he thanked the nation for its support in a speech to Parliament while making a fresh appeal for military aircraft. "I will leave Parliament thanking all of you in advance for powerful English planes," he said to laughter and applause. Standing with Zelensky in front of a tank at a military base in Dorset, where the British military is training Ukrainian troops, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said that nothing is off the table when it comes to Ukraine's requests for fighter jets. The United Kingdom plans to train Ukrainian fighter pilots to operate NATO jets, he said, adding that British Challenger 2 tanks would be on the battlefield in Ukraine within weeks. French President Emmanuel Macron is set to host Zelensky and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz for dinner in Paris on Wednesday, Macron's office confirmed in a news release. Zelensky said he planned to meet Thursday with EU leaders scheduled to gather for a summit in Brussels. Here's the latest on the war and its ripple effects across the globe. Stoltenberg in Washington. Stoltenberg is set to meet with senior Biden administration officials in Washington on Wednesday, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He is also set to meet with members of Congress to discuss support for Ukraine's self-defense against Russia's aggression, a NATO official said. Ukraine is a partner, but not a member, of NATO, while Finland and Sweden have applied to join the alliance in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Zelensky in London and Paris. Zelensky also met with King Charles III at Buckingham Palace on Wednesday afternoon. In a statement, Zelensky said it was an honor to become the first Ukrainian president to have an audience with a British monarch. "We know Russia will lose. We really know the victory will change the world, a change that the world has long needed," Zelensky said in his address to Parliament. He thanked Britain and former Prime Minister Boris Johnson for coming to Ukraine's aid, saying, "London has stood with Kyiv since day one." Ukraine has appealed to Western countries for advanced weapons, including fighter jets, to turn the tide of the conflict, buoyed by recent decisions from its allies to supply Ukraine with tanks. On Wednesday, Zelensky called for armored vehicles and long-range missiles in addition to fighter jets. Britain has pledged to help train fighter pilots and Marines and has offered 14 Challenger 2 tanks, although it has not promised any military aircraft. Sunak, who met with Zelensky earlier in the day, sought to underscore that Britain has led the way in providing weapons and military support to Kyiv, pointing to the Challenger 2s and other examples. The British Prime Minister said Wednesday evening that it takes time to learn how to operate fighter jets, 3 years, under normal circumstances, and that his government has to work out supply chain needs before sending aircraft. "We're having that conversation," he added. The British government announced a fresh round of sanctions targeting Russian military and Kremlin elites as Zelensky arrived in London. Individuals added to the list include Svetlana Kravanagic, an alleged former lover of Russian President Vladimir Putin. These new sanctions accelerate the economic pressure on Putin, undermining his war machine to help Ukraine prevail, Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said.